Hello and welcome to my second video on Stevenson's purpose in the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So in this version, the novella becomes slightly political. So Stevenson's purpose is to expose the hypocrisy of the middle classes and the upper middle classes, represented by Hyde, Lanyon, Utterson, Enfield, all wealthy men in professional jobs. And he sees them all as morally corrupt, and they represent society at large, the wider society. And in particular, it's that male middle class society that he's attacking. So to get some proof of this, we start to look at the double lives that they lead and the misleading appearances that they put forward, their public face. So the depiction of Dr. Jekyll's house was possibly based on the residence of a famous surgeon, John Hunter, who lived from 1728 to 1793. And he was famous because he paid for the illegal trade in human bodies, as we'll see in a minute. And he had a respectable and renowned, that means famous house in Leicester Square in the late 18th century, which also had a secret. And he had that secret in order to teach and to gain knowledge about human anatomy. So one of the things that drives this hypocrisy is the desire to get new knowledge in science. And that's exactly what's happening with Jekyll. And in order to find out about human anatomy, John Hunter had to obtain dead bodies. And that wasn't very easy to do. So Hunter required human cadavers, the name for a dead body, many of them supplied by resurrection men. This was an ironic term, bringing the dead back to life, because of course they weren't doing anything of the sort. They were actually stealing dead bodies, and they robbed fresh graves in order to do it. And these were brought, usually at night, to the back entrance of the house. So you can see the immediate parallel with Jekyll and Hyde. Hyde, the disgraceful secret, just comes in via the back entrance. And it had a drawbridge leading to the preparation rooms and the lecture theatre. And you should remember that Jekyll's house also has this kind of lecture theatre in it. This is where the dead bodies would be displayed. Now, the reason this is hypocritical is that John Hunter would have known that these cadavers had been stolen. Indeed, there are several cases known where dead bodies couldn't be found, so they simply went out and killed people and brought them for surgeons to have a look at. So let's look in a bit more detail at the front of Jekyll's house. It presents a great air of wealth and comfort, chapter 2. Meanwhile, Mr. Hyde, soon after we first encounter him, is seen entering a building which displays an air of prolonged and sordid negligence. So there's a deliberate contrast there between the outward facade or the mask of respectability provided by wealth and the reality of what's hidden behind, which is sordid, meaning dirty, but also prolonged, which means that it's been corrupt like this for a long time. And with this symbolism, Stevenson is suggesting that most of London is like this. The wealthy put on this air, this impression of being great and comfortable, but actually behind it, they're up to all sorts of sordid, disgusting things. The twist is that the reputable front and the run-down rear form two sides of the same property. And so Stevenson deliberately makes this difficult for the other characters, in particular Utterson, to work this out, because he's trying to make the point that in society we find it difficult to see beyond that mask of wealth back to the reality that it might be hiding. Stevenson is not only making the point that the respectable and the disreputable frequently exist in close proximity, but also that a respectable facade is no guarantee against the dark secrets lurking within. So here is an actual map of John Hunter's house, and you can see how it was arranged, where the theatre is, um, how large it would have been, and how difficult it would be for someone on the street here to work out that another street down here was an entrance to the same house. They would have looked like separate houses, just as Dr. Jekyll's did. It's important to remember that Stevenson isn't just inspired by this house, it becomes an allusion to common knowledge that his readers would have had. So he would have been a famous case. The grave robbers were famous crimes of the time that were well known, and his readers would look back on this and know exactly what he was getting at, which is not just a particular house, it represents the corruption of the whole medical profession. Now, ironically, great advances were made by surgeons through this illegal trade in dead bodies, but it's hypocritical. And this is exactly what motivates Dr. Jekyll. He's quite happy to break the law in pursuit of science. And one of the things Stevenson is doing is questioning whether we should ever justify breaking the law simply because we think it will lead to a better advantage. And it's up to you to decide for yourself which way you think the novel goes. Is it in support of medical science, striving to get breakthroughs, or is it a warning against the dangers of medical science and how it will destroy our natures? Now, it isn't just Jekyll who represents the middle classes. So in a similar fashion, the seemingly decent Mr. Enfield, a friend of the lawyer Mr. Utterson, first encounters Hyde while coming home from some place at the end of the world, about 3 o'clock of a black winter morning. Exactly where Mr. Enfield has been, what he has been up to, are never made clear, but it sounds far from innocent. Well, let's delve into that quotation, because I suggest you learn this one about Mr. Enfield, because it will be relevant to any question on any character, because it suggests the wider context of middle-class men. And let's just zoom in. So at the end of the world is a clear biblical reference here, a judgment day that happens in Revelations. And the idea here is that he has been in a place where we might expect sins to be committed. He's done it far away from the middle class area in which he lives in order to get away with it. But there's a clear implication that he's been up to things that he shouldn't have done. And then, of course, the time also emphasizes that. He's coming home very, very late. He doesn't appear to be drunk, so what he's done has been purposeful. You need your wits about you to get up to real crime, if you like. We've no idea what that is, but the use of the word black here links it to evil and being sinister. The fact that it's a winter makes him seem deliberately cold. So all these word choices are symbolic of how corrupt and evil the apparently middle-class men are. Next, of course, we have Utterson. And Utterson is perfectly happy not to reveal any connection between Hyde and Dr. Jekyll when Sir Danvers Carew is murdered. So hopefully you remember that it's Utterson who works out that the murder weapon is actually Dr. Jekyll's cane that Hyde has got. It's Utterson who knows Hyde's address in Soho and who takes the police there, but he never reveals to the police the link between Hyde and Dr. Jekyll, and he never reveals his suspicions that Dr. Jekyll knows where Hyde is. So in other words, Utterson is complicit in the murder because he knows Hyde is a murderer. He doesn't know Hyde is the same as Dr. Jekyll, and he knows that Jekyll is protecting Hyde, so Utterson will side with his own middle-class male friend at the expense of harbouring a murderer. And this is extraordinary, and Stevenson just presents it as a matter that would appear quite normal in this society. And in fact, if you go back to the first page where Utterson and Enfield first pause outside Hyde's door, you'll see that Utterson doesn't really want to talk about whatever it is that makes him suspicious about Jekyll. He'd simply rather turn a blind eye rather than expose the truth. In my next video, we'll look at the character of London itself and how that is a metaphor for a society as a whole, and how corrupt that society is. Until then, keep revising. If you'd like to know more, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.